What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a Capital Hungry educational webinar on consistency in both trading and life from my perspective, experiences, and what I have learned so far, going through, of course, the journey of trading and, of course, life itself. Okay, so we're going to be taking our time going through this as we're just starting off the week here, as this may seem like a very simple concept to understand and grasp, but something that many people, of course, outside of Capital Hungry and outside of trading, struggle with, right? So I just want to really break it down in terms that people can really understand and relate to, and hopefully it becomes something of value for people to apply, whether it be in their fitness journey, trading journey, through their own personal career, self-development, and so forth. Okay, so there's a common theme when we're looking at the masses of society, and it's that the majority of people in their life lack consistency as well as discipline and are aware of this, but unaware of the root cause. Okay, so majority of people, when you look at them in society, where we have to follow these various societal norms and systems, majority of people only focus on consistency with various events and various skill sets or items in their life that they are not accustomed to yet. So meaning somebody may be very fat and they want to go to the gym, but they struggle staying consistent with the gym. Somebody may hate their job and they want to make more money, but they struggle sticking to learning a new skill and so forth. So it's not like the concept of consistency isn't already very well used in society. It's just that the consistency we are looking at is almost split into two kinds of consistency. So for us to understand the concept of consistency and what really drives that, we have to understand the human brain first. Okay, so, and it's extremely interesting when you look at the people who have controlled civilizations throughout history, even in the modern day, how they have an absolute understanding of this very key function of the human brain. Okay, so first you must understand the brain. The brain has very basic functions, which is primarily linked to survival. In our modern society, survival is rooted into the economic systems. Your brain's job is to ensure your survival from one day to the next, right? In the modern society, this means following the education system, getting a job, paying your bills, paying taxes, paying for your cost of living, and so forth. So what I want everybody to understand is that your brain in its base form isn't predetermined or designed in nature to be a doctor or to be some type of mathematical genius or to be a scientist. No, your brain runs its daily functions of the various bodily processes, from your heart beating to your lungs moving and you being able to breathe. It's very easy for all of us to understand that we don't consciously have to focus on breathing. We don't consciously have to focus on keeping our heart beating. We don't consciously have to focus on our digestive system moving and digesting food and all of that. These are the primary functions of our brain, right? So let's dive into this a little bit deeper. When we were a lot farther away from survival, when you're looking at civilizations through history, the brain was far more active in the events and duties it would have to take place every single day, because there was much more involved in terms of day-to-day survival, right? Having to actually hunt or get food for yourself, cook the food and so forth, having to actually make or have a shelter, putting clothes on your back. Every single day was majority of your time and energy the brain was spending on what it has to do, which was survival. But this has been completely flipped on its head when you look at very modern civilizations, or civilizations even throughout history that have developed so far away from survival, where the basic brain functions are so easy to accomplish, right? You don't have to go out and hunt your own food. We all have homes or apartments or shelter to live in, clothes on our back. access to all these various necessities and so forth. So your brain in the modern society has it extremely easy, very safe, and its job is super cake. It's like if you were given a job and all of a sudden your job went from extremely difficult to very easy, you wouldn't want to change that either, right? The human brain has become very comfortable with the accessibility, all the resources, all the convenience, and all the access that we have to all these various things in our society that make survival so easy, right? So there's a few takeaway points from this. One, we have to understand our brain's basic functions. It's not designed to be a trader. It's not designed to be it's not designed to be an astronaut or to be an astrologer or so forth. Two, our brain in the modern societies does have a lot more free time, energy, and capacity for us to train it otherwise. Because again, remember, our brain and our bodies are not primarily focused on survival. We're not spending hours of the day hunting or looking to cook our food in that type of sense, or make and build a shelter and focus about survival for the next day. Where as humans, we are really past that animalistic stage, right? And what's very interesting is the people who have conquered throughout civilizations and history have fully understood this. So when they can have their power hierarchy linked to the survival function of the brain, they can really control everything. Because remember, in our modern societies, your survival and quality of life is primarily linked to the money system and the economic system we are born into, right? So that's what I'm going to be talking about here. We are already victim to forced consistency within the economic system and societal system we are born into. The majority of us in developed nations, if you want to have a higher quality of life in this game where the rules are predetermined, you have to go to school every single day, even though you might not like school, even though you might not like what you're learning. You still have to try to get good grades so you can possibly get a better job. You have to go to your job every single day to get paid. You have to get your money every single time to pay your cost of living, pay your taxes, and so forth, right? So we are already victim to forced consistency in programming through this economic system. That shows us that the concept of consistency for the human brain, the concept of training the brain, the concept of programming the brain is very much possible, and it's already very evident because 99% of people are doing shit every single day that they don't want to do. What does that tell you? Right? Also remember, modern society being so far away from survival strives off of consumerism and capitalism. The focus isn't survival for society anymore. The focus for the wealthy and the ruling elite who run the world is extending their wealth, gaining more power, gaining more control. So the majority of paths that people are put on is a path of consumerism and pleasure. It's very easy in society for our brain to conform, as following the pleasures that are handed to us and all the conveniences is the easiest way to go from one day to the next. Your brain isn't focusing on 40 years of survival, 50 years of survival, or longevity. Your brain's basic function is to make sure the processes of your body make it to the next day. You wake up again the next morning and your brain has done its job, right? That's why the majority of people fall victim to this vicious path and cycle in society where they will eat like garbage, they will rest like shit, stay up all hours of the night, constantly consume mindless media and so forth, because it's extremely easy to do in the short term. It's very convenient in the short term. It still ensures your survival to the next day. You're still feeding your body. You're still you're still spending your time somehow. But in the long term, it's proven an obvious self-destructive path. But in our society, that self-destructive path of the masses leads to a prosperous future for the wealthy. Okay. So what we have to understand is, but this was all programmed. The few paths of society are man-made and systematically programmed to the masses. We do not get that free will of choice coming out of our mother's womb and choosing what we really want to do with our life, where you're really put on this set track as soon as you're at a very young age, right? The masses are told through all avenues that this is how life is. You go to school or you get some jobs, you work those jobs, you pay your bills, you consume, you try to enjoy the little bits of luxuries of life that you can, you retire and die. This is what society and the masses of society have been programmed to, that this is what life is, that this is all life is: working, consuming, and dying. Even though the earth is a even though the earth is billions of years old, we know so much about we know so little, sorry, about the universe or even the earth itself, that we're so out of touch with reality and nature and all of these other things. But people don't understand that this is a man-made capitalistic system that benefits the few at the cost of the many, right? So the masses are told through all avenues that this is how life is. You go to school, you work a job, you pay your bills, you consume, retire, and die. This is repetition. That is forced consistency, but the majority of it is with various events and activities that people don't really want to do. It doesn't really bring them happiness, but they have no choice because modern day survival is linked to these various systems, right? When in reality, this is a capitalistic man-made system to benefit the few at the cost of the many. What we can take away from this, though, is that the brain can be manipulated and it can be trained, but it requires an intense amount of repetition. And that's exactly what the one percenters, the ruling elite, have always exploited out of the masses, is continuous programming and repetition, not just through days, not just through months, through years and generations, through generations of families, through generations of people living and dying and going through the cycles of life, the same repetition, the same programming. That's what makes people generally think that this is how it is. This is how it's supposed to be, even though it's programmed that way. The brains have been trained to think this is the way it is, right? So what does this mean? Well, in simple terms, when we're relating to our modern societies, it means that there are two paths when you're looking at your paths of consistency, because both paths are essentially going to require you doing things that you may not enjoy, that may not bring you happiness, but they're very, very different. And I'm going to explain that now. Okay. One path is the path of conformity and being consistent, but with the values held by the masses in society, not your own values. Working a job you hate, living a low quality of life, mass media, and poor consumption overall, that is just leading to overall depression. This path is what is promoted in society as it feeds this corrupt economic system. This path, the reason why the majority of people follow this path is because it allows and gives you short-term satisfactions and pleasures that numbs out from the overall misery of you doing all these things day in and day out that you absolutely hate and despise, right? Now, the other path is a path of consistency with your own choices rooted around your own values and self-development. Examples being eating based on nutrients, not eating based on pleasure and taste, resting efficiently, being physically active to keep your working machine in the best shape possible, learning new skills and knowledge, taking risks and exploring. This path is not promoted in society because the majority of people that take this path no longer are consumers. They go back to being human beings. The masses that fall victim into this path end up just being robots, workers, and consumers. The people who end up following this path end up being free thinkers, having their own personal strength and willpower, and they are not feeding this very, very vicious capitalistic system in the same degree that the masses are, right? This path is not promoted in society as it leads to personal strength and liberation. Now, there's two different things here. With path number one, the very easy to follow path and negative path of consistency, where your consistency is based on the values held in the masses of society, remember, in the long term, you hate your life. You hate your job. You hate how much you make. You hate the way you look. You hate how you feel physically. You hate your relationships in your life. You have nothing to be accomplished or proud of. In the long term, you hate what you are becoming. You hate what you are doing. In the short term, you numb that out by following short-term satisfactions and pleasures that numb out that pain in the short term, but make the pain even worse in the long term. Here, in the short term, you are primarily doing things that will not be enjoyable, but will have long-term beneficial impacts. For example, your brain, remember, wants to just keep everything as safe, easy, simple, convenient as possible. But when you're learning a new skill or learning new knowledge, this is foreign material for your brain. It might be stressed out by this and trigger some stress emotional responses or some tension in your neck or you getting a headache. This is just your brain signaling that, hey, I don't really like trying new things. I want to keep things as easy as possible because my basic function is to go from day one to day two, and my job's been easy. Go back to sitting your ass on the couch. Go back to fucking jerking your dick off to porn. Go back to just watching mindless entertainment. You're making my job easy, but it ruins your overall long-term well-being, right? So you have to understand when you're getting distracted, stressed out, or tense learning new things, it's because your brain is having that initial stress emotional response, a triggered emotional response to prevent you from going down that path because your brain just wants to keep things as easy as possible. But when you go down that path and go past your brain's natural triggered emotional response, at the end of that, when you learn something new, you personally feel proud. You feel more knowledgeable. You feel more confident in what you just learned. So there's a lesson to be taught there. Let's look at this in another example when you go to the gym. Going to the gym itself and exercising in the short term for the majority of people can be very difficult, stressful, tiring. You feel sore, you feel hurt. Your brain doesn't want you to feel this way or feel any type of discomfort. Remember, it has a basic function. It just wants you to make it from point A to point B, day one to day two. But after the workout, or after you start to get some results and you start to feel stronger, or your body's better shaped, or you're feeling like you have more endurance, or you feel that relief after being proud of a workout, that's a great feeling. That's a sense of accomplishment, a sense of fulfillment that can't be bought as a consumption item. When you learn something new, this really, like, yeah, you can pay for a course or pay for something like Capital Hungry, but it's not something that's really promoted in the consumeristic society. You know what I mean? And it cannot be taken away from you. And it's something that has a long-term impact. It is value added into your life. So one of these in the short term chases pleasure, but in the long term destroys your life. The other one in the short term chases value, but and avoids pleasure, but in the long term enlightens your life, grows yourself, brings value to yourself, right? Both involve consistency in essence. Both involve repetition day in and day out. Both involve a sense of discipline, but one discipline is already pre-programmed, a set of rules and guidelines given by the societal system we are born into and game we are born into. The other one is going to be dependent on your own values, goals, dreams, needs, and wants. Right? So the takeaway points so far, just to summarize, the human brain is not naturally wired to be great. It is doing its job every single day of surviving in the easiest way possible from one day to the next. If we want more out of the human brain, we must train it further and utilize it further to unlock its potential, right? So, and not to be rude, just to talk about everybody, the brain really starts retarded. The brain's going to do its basic shit of keeping you breathing, keeping you shitting, keeping your heart beating, making sure you make it to the next day. Anything further than that, where the brain does have limitless potential to learn, grow, and so forth, has to be a personal choice made by you. Okay? We are already conditioned in our societal system to force consistency as it's, sorry, typo here, as it's linked to modern day survival, going through school, working, paying bills, and so forth, meaning that consistency is possible for anyone. Even though people may think it's not possible, you are already very consistent with things that you're subconsciously not even focusing on. It's just been pre-programmed in our societal system, right? So number one, we have the power, we have the ability, we have the access to resources, information, and more, especially in our modern societies with everything is at a click of a button, that we can train our brain further and unlock its potential even further. Number two, the concept of consistency is 100% possible for anyone. It's proven through our societal system. People go to jobs every single day that they hate because they're forced to make some money to pay bills and survive. It's there, right? Now, we must now make active decisions in our day-to-day process, choosing events that will bring us value, because clearly the path of the masses, proven statistically from looking at their finances, their mental health, their physical health, clearly the path that they are taking with their consistent repetition day in and day out is a self-destructive one. It benefits the few at the cost of the many. Okay? So now diving deeper into understanding what is consistency. Consistency in terms of what we are looking for, which I like to call productive consistency, is repetition regardless of emotions. Your personal purpose and goals must be greater than your day-to-day emotional changes, especially in our modern societies. It is extremely easy in this modern society that's victim to consumerism to get distracted and fall victim into chasing pleasure. Okay? So you must have a set of values. You must have a personal purpose of and this personal purpose doesn't have to be something grand. Even if that means you just want to be better across various aspects of your life, and that better, quote unquote, improvement can be 1% a day, 0.1% a day, but that's your purpose. That you don't want to live a mediocre life. You want to at least strive for greatness. That's a perfectly viable purpose that can have you chasing your goals and having you look past your day-to-day emotional changes. Because if you just constantly follow your day-to-day emotional changes and allow that to dictate your daily choices, how can you ever be consistent when our emotions are inconsistent? Right? Especially when our emotions are so inconsistent in the modern society, because our emotions are so heavily influenced by all the stimuli we are taking in from media, social media, friendship circles, and so forth. That's why you need to have a core set of, like, sculpted in stone within your heart and will of your values, your wants and needs out of life that nobody can take away or shake from you, that day-to-day emotions can't take and distract from. And if that's simply to strive for personal greatness, that's perfectly respectable and viable, right? So with that understanding, you must be extremely self-aware and analyze how you spend your time and remove valueless events and replace them with productive activities. Okay, because you're most likely already systematically programmed and brainwashed in spending hours on social media. I'm not saying don't entertain yourself. Don't take breaks and relax. Don't enjoy and indulge in the pleasures of life. I'm not saying that. But when those pleasures of life and that indulgence or those distractions are taking over the primary, like are taking over your whole time every single day, then you know what the outcome is going to be. There has to be a way larger divide there. where 80 to 90% of your time is spent on production and bringing value to your life, and the other 10 to 20% is spent on leisure, right? I'm not saying be a robot. I'm not trying to promote some nonstop hustle and grind culture. No, but we can clearly see there is a very large disease going on amongst people's mentalities when you're looking at the masses. It's very easy to see that nowadays, especially through the pandemic and through the lockdowns, right? So if you're spending a lot of time and the majority of your time on entertainment, video games, watching mindless media and content, social media and so forth, addicted to porn, abusing various substances and so forth, right? Well, then what I want you to do is be self-aware and critical enough to remove those and replace them with things like going to the gym, playing some sports, reading, learning a new skill, even something that unlocks more of your creativity, like drawing, painting, writing something that's more creative instead of, doesn't have to be some research paper on the markets. You could just be writing a personal story. You're using your brain. You're bringing value to your brain. Exactly. You're promoting those various cognitive skills, right? So the reason why society falls victim into chasing short-term pleasure is because the reward is instant. And because the reward is instant, it numbs from the true misery of their life decisions being made for them. The majority of us, including myself, a huge chunk of my life decisions were made for me, of having to go through a schooling system, of having to work jobs and having to pay certain bills and X, Y, and Z, right? But when your decisions are made for you for the entirety of your life, that is extremely demoralized. That is dehumanizing. That through your one precious rare life, there's nothing more rare than that, than this life itself, nothing more precious, that through this very limited time on this earth, all of your choices were made for you. That's very dehumanizing. That's very depressing. That's very sad. Yes, we all have to follow various societal rules and norms and the game that we are born into, but we also have the power to do a lot more for ourselves as individuals and take more control of our life back into our own hands. It's very difficult. People's circumstances are different. Not everybody's journey is going to be the exact same, but the possibility is 100% there. This path of self-development is far more difficult for the masses because it gives them this double whammy. They have to deal with the misery of their life and their decisions being made for them, on top of having to delay instant gratification. So it's like, what's the point? I have to work this shit job and now work out and now try to learn an extra skill. Oh man, this is all so hard. Right? But that difficult path is far more worth it. So something else we have to understand that ties hand in hand with everything else, the striking similarities of our brain and computers. Your brain is a supercomputer and also no different in terms of application. What you consume visually, mentally, and physically is what will make up your brain's memory and capacity. How could you ever dream of having innovative, productive, or positive thoughts if all you ever consume or download into your computer brain is absolute nonsense? The majority of people, due to living in a consumer-driven society, fill their mind with absolute mindless entertainment, nonsense, junk, and nothing else. So on top of a life filled with true misery, short-term pleasure and numbness, and now absolute junk being downloaded to the memory, we can see why various mental illness, suicide rates, depression, and so forth are rising at exponential rates. It's not a secret. It's really out there in the open. You just have to be aware enough to see the game for what it truly is, right? At the end of the day, people are absolutely polluting their minds, which is a supercomputer, every single day downloading straight trash. If you on your computer right now, every single day, were just downloading straight garbage every single day, not cleaning it, not taking care of it, not maintaining the core systems and functions, what's eventually going to happen to your computer? It's going to break down. It's going to be very slow, lagging, right? When your computer is very slow, very lagging, crashing, think about that in terms of the brain relation. Why do you think people are so much easier manipulated or so much more likely to follow suit with their leaders say? Their brains are already fucking retarded down, even dumbed down even further, straight polluted. Their brains are slow, barely functioning, lagging, delayed, whether you like it or not. That's what this constant repetition is going to do. Right? I just wanted to give that example so people can really start to be active every day of how they're spending their time and how they're treating their bodily systems and these various gifts that we have been given from our human bodies, and how much we could achieve from the physical potential to our human minds and the supercomputer in our brain and how much it can really achieve. And look at the body and mind of the general masses and people. Disgusting, really. Right? So now, takeaway tips from this webinar overall, because consistency is something that we experience already day in and day out. Now you just have to take that consistency back into your own hands and control and focus it on various events and activities that are going to bring you value and growth in your life rather than waste your life away. Okay? So take the time to analyze how you spend every minute of your day and cut out anything that wastes your time, money, energy, and effort. Replace those time wasters with productive events that will bring you value physically, mentally, or financially. Have an understanding that your brain wants to live as safe and easy as possible. But if you just follow your brain and allow that, you will end up with long-term misery in our pleasure-driven consumer society. Focus on training your mind to delay instant gratification. Understand this training is possible, but will take months to years of repetition, and focus on the long-term benefits. Focus on productive consistency across all aspects of your life as it works hand in hand. The more consistent you can become with your body and staying in shape, the more consistent you can become with eating clean and eating right, the more consistent you become with following your trading rules and trading plans and trading system. It all works hand in hand and will all improve your overall psychological consistency as a human being. Make active decisions and be active and involved in what you're doing every day, why you're doing it, and how you will do it as well. Okay? So I don't want to make this too long, but I just wanted everybody to understand from my perspective some of those deep-rooted applications of consistency, how we are already surrounded by consistency and doing things that we hate in our modern societies, and how we really just need to shift that focus and attention to more value-driven events, activities, information, and skills. Okay? So hopefully you guys enjoy webinars and stuff like this. I'm going to save and upload this, and I'll see you guys after for a weekly recap and refresher webinar.